How to implement containerization in container orchestration with Docker and Kubernetes. How to implement containerization. Kubernetes and Docker are important implementations in container orchestration. Kubernetes is an open-source orchestration system that has recently gained popularity among IT operations teams and developers. What are containers, and what do they do with Kubernetes and Docker? The container may be executed in production on any machine equipped with a containerization platform. Docker makes life a lot simpler for software developers by assisting them in running their programs in a similar environment without any complications, such as OS difficulties or dependencies, because a Docker container gives its OS libraries. Build and deploy containers with Docker. Docker is a tool that assists developers in creating and deploying applications inside containers. The Docker file will then outline a build procedure, creating an immutable image when given to the Docker build command. Consider the Docker image a snapshot of the program with all its prerequisites and dependencies. Implementing containerization in container orchestration with Docker and Kubernetes. The following is a list of the actions that may be taken to implement containerization as well as container orchestration using Docker and Kubernetes. Docker must initially be installed on the host system as the first step in the process. Containers may be created using Docker, deployed with Docker, and operated with Docker. Docker containers can only be constructed and operated using the Docker engine. Create a Docker image for your application after Docker has been successfully installed. To create the Docker image, you should use the Docker engine. The installation of Kubernetes on the host system is the next step to take. Containers may be managed and orchestrated with the help of Kubernetes. Create a group of nodes to work together using Kubernetes. To manage and execute the containers, you must create Kubernetes objects such as pods, services, and deployments. When deploying the Docker image to the cluster, Kubernetes should be used. To implement containerization and container orchestration using Docker and Kubernetes, the process begins with creating a Docker image, then push that image to a registry, creating a Kubernetes cluster, and finally, the deployment of the Docker image to the cluster using Kubernetes. The application and a specification of all the binaries and libraries necessary for the container to execute are all needed. Read more information about it on our blogs. Visit knife.io.